This is a very simple little granola I'm making. Now the thing with granolas is, on the face of it, they look like a very healthy food. And you know, they're not bad. But I do kind of treat them a little bit of caution because they're a relatively high fat, high sugar food as well. But where, in my view, granolas come into their own is as a kind of a supplement to something else. For example, if you want to make a kind of a lovely poached or cooked peach dish for a dessert, just or grilled peaches, just simply grill the peaches and then a sprinkling of granola on top and maybe a very simple little syrup on top of that, and it's a nice, quite a healthy little dessert. Or likewise, for breakfast, big bowl of fruit, berries, strawberries, blueberries and the like, maybe a blob of low-fat Greek yogurt on top of that, and a nice sprinkling granola. But the granola isn't forming the central part, it's more of a supplement. That's how I like to use granolas. But very easy thing to do, and air fryers have made granola very simple altogether. And the basic formulas of granolas is just basically it's oats, a little bit of a syrup of some type. I'm using honey, maple syrup, anything like that will do. An oil. Now another thing is the shop bought granolas, and this is why you're probably better off making it yourself. Those big manufacturers, they're not really interested in making a healthy anti-inflammatory type of food. They're interested in making profit, which is fair enough. But the problem is that they're going to use a cheaper seed oil. You need an oil in granolas to make it crunchy. But if they're using something like a sunflower oil or one of the cheaper or hydrogenated fat or something like that, or trans fat, you're going to have a lovely tasting granola, but it's going to be pretty inflammatory. So it's at least when you're using a coconut oil and you've made it yourself, you know exactly what you're getting. Failing that, if you're buying it in the shop, always just read the ingredients. If you see any kind of seed oils used, you see a seed oil uses an omega-6 pathway in digestion, which is an inflammatory pathway, whereas omega-3s use an anti-inflammatory pathway in their digestion. So it's good to try avoid these seed oils. Also bearing in mind sugars, anything that spikes your insulin levels. Like having spikes in insulin is normal after you eat, but something that's going to continuously put too much of a sugar spike, for want of a better, a high GI food, is also quite an inflammatory good thing to be doing, and something that you're best avoiding. But anyhow, without waffling and rabbiting on too much, granola. All you need for this is the oats into a bowl, and I'm going to just pop on my air fryer. Open my power from my air fryer. I'm going to put that on the bake setting, which is about 160 degrees. Put a spoon, oats in there, and then I'm going to put about a tablespoon of honey into my oats. I'm going to put just a pinch of salt, and my coconut oil, which I've got my quantities in the recipe itself. I've got my coconut oil, which I've melted just very simply in the microwave. And then what you want to do is mix all of those together. Make sure that the oats get a little bit of oil coating on all of the oats. Now the great thing with the air fryer again is it heats very quickly, but what I'm doing with the air fryer as well is some air fryers have nice smooth bowls, and those ones are great. Now, just as a matter of interest, this recipe will work in the oven perfectly, and you could even make slightly a bigger quantity because granola lasts very well in an airtight container. But if you want to make a smaller quantity, and the air fryer is perfect. So some air fryers, as I was saying, have a kind of a smooth bowl. In that case, just put your oats straight into the bottom of it. But if it's kind of got ridges or something inside it, a little piece of baking parchment or greaseproof paper, and into the base, and that will just stop the oats kind of getting everywhere and getting into things. You want to be able to stir them about every 5-6 minutes as you're cooking. You want to give them a little bit of a toss up. So anyhow, with my oats, what I've done is I've mixed this in a way that all of the oats are coated with a little bit of the oil. Very simple. So now what I'm going to do with my air fryer is, again, I've got an air fryer that I'm lucky that it's got quite a smooth bowl on the base, so I can put my oats straight into this. But as I said, if there's any kind of ridging inside, use a bit of baking parchment. It'll make life easier. So I'm just going to pop those oats in there. And it'll take about 20 minutes, 25 minutes to cook. But about every 5 minutes, just open it up, give them a little bit of a mix about. And it's really that simple. And then what I'm going to do to finish them is I have a selection of nuts. I have all different types, pistachios, almonds, hazelnuts, the whole lot. You could roast them lightly in a pan just to get a bit of texture into them. And basically whatever kind of dry fruits you have handy, I'm using some cacao nibs here, some chia seeds, some dates, apricots, and some nice prunes all stoned into that. And I'm just going to roughly chop those up and mix them through the granola when it's cooled down a little bit. So after about 20 minutes in the air fryer, here's my granola. Now another thing you might notice is I didn't use any sugar in this recipe. For me, and again it's something that you'll see with a lot of the shop, most of the shop bought granolas, not only are they very high in oil, they're extremely high in sugar as well. So the coconut oil, another reason that you're using that is it's to saturate so it doesn't denature under high heat, which is actually very, very important from an inflammation point of view. But anyhow, there's our oats. I'm just going to let those cool down. As they cool down, they're going to get nice and crispy. But for me, if you can avoid that kind of heavy sugar added granola as well, it's not a bad thing to do. So we're going to just let that cool down for about a few minutes before I add the rest of the ingredients. So my granola has cooled down. I've waited for about 10 minutes there. And it's nice and cool now at this stage. And now what I'm going to just do is add a couple of teaspoons of chia seed, ground chia seed. Or sorry, these are the whole chia seed. Just mix those around any old way. I've got a few. Now you could use whatever you want here. Goji berries, raisins, any kind of things at all. A few cacao nibs, which I think just bring that nice kind of chocolatey flavour in there. And then if you remember those pistachio, roasted hazelnuts, pecans. I've got this lovely selection that, now I cut these all by hand. I think you get a much nicer texture than trying to put them in a blender. So in the nut selection, I have hazelnuts, pecans, almonds, pistachios. And then I've also got some dates, some dried apricot, and some dried prunes. You could use cranberries, whatever your imagination takes you. So I'm going to put that big pile of nuts and fruit, dried fruit, into the granola as well there. And just mix all that around together. And then just allow it to cool fully. Just if there's any heat at all, because you don't want it to go into your preserve jars anyway hot. Because if there's even a little bit of heat, it'll start to sweat in there and you're going to lose your shelf life. But that's it. That's basically it. Now, as I said, you look at granola as a couple of tablespoons on top of something else. That's how I like to eat it. That's, it's one of those very, very versatile kind of store cupboard things. There's no added sugar in this. But again, it is a lovely thing to be able to fall back on. You can use it for desserts. You can use it for all sorts of things. So that's our very, very simple homemade granola and the air fryer. Again, you could use the oven for this. It'll take a little bit longer, but it's essentially the same type of recipe. So just to show a little use for that granola that we just made. Very, very simple, but kind of a good looking little dessert. I'm going to add about a half a teaspoon of coconut oil onto a pan. Nice stainless steel pan I'd recommend, or some kind of non-reactive metal on this, because when you're using an acid in the fruit, if you're say using an aluminium or something, it tends to react a little bit. And now into that coconut oil, just going to add a couple of peaches. Make sure they're nice and ripe. And then also I'm going to add a pinch, be cautious of this one, a little pinch of ground aniseed. Just going to toss those around there in the pan just for a few seconds. Then into that I'm going to add about a tablespoon of water. Just a of water. Going to let those peaches then cook. And you just start to tenderize and kind of warm through a little bit. You could use a peach schnapps in here or something like that, but just to get that little bit of kind of caramelization and flavour going in them. You don't want them too hot. The whole trick here is to get nice freshness into it. You could add sugar, you could add things like that. I don't think it's too necessary. Just gonna add a little drop more water in there, because I do want a little bit of a kind of a syrupy type of texture to this. When you're about this stage, that's all you want. Just going to turn off the heat. That's pretty much your little fried peaches. And then what I'm going to do is, this is an appropriate plate. Then a few little peaches on top of that, with just that little hint of anise in it. So your little grilled peaches, or fried peaches. You could grill these just as easily. And then I'm going to just take my granola, which I made just a little bit earlier on. First of all, I'm just going to put a few little sprigs of my lemon verbena. Now the smell, it's a potent herb, this, so use it fairly sparingly. And just let the heat kind of take some of the flavour of the verbena. Because again, you get this lovely, there's nothing really smells like lemon verbena. It's an amazing, amazing smelling herb. And then onto that little granola I made earlier, just going to put a generous few tablespoons of the granola all around. So essentially I'm making a little kind of granola crumble here with peaches. And that's a very simple kind of a granola lemon verbena. Now, if you can't get lemon verbena, just use a bit of mint. Grand. And I just had the lemon verbena and I wanted to use a little piece of it. And that's it. Kind of a little peach crumble, for want of a better description. You could serve that with a little blob of Greek yogurt, even a bit of ice cream or something like that. But again, it just shows you something that you could use for your granola as a nice little dessert idea as opposed to just a breakfast.